Is this thing on? It is. All right, welcome back to the channel. I'm DaRock. We're here once again talking college basketball. It's conference tournament week. There's been games all day, every day, all week. I've been up way too late watching them, and then I get up even earlier to record this for you guys. Sorry for no video yesterday, but today we got a big one. We got both Burry Best, A10 Superfan, as well as Peter Wallis, two of the best Twitter follows on A10 Twitter, joining me previewing the A10 tournament that me and Burry will be at in person here starting on Friday all the way through the weekend. And then afterwards, I'm just going to jump into some of my other picks for other tournaments, as well as, I went on CarterCast once again to preview both the Big Ten and the SEC, plus any of his great guests like J-Man, Paul Fritchner, Chase Rogers on previewing the other conferences. So I won't jump too deep into my picks for those conferences, just because, like I said, you can check out his preview for that. But do that, talk the other games here on Wednesday. And then I'm going to have a big video here coming tonight. Like I said, going to the Big Ten today, then driving to Cleveland tonight to the MAC. So when I get there, plan on dropping a video, just kind of going over everything else. So let me get into my A10 preview. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check out all my socials. I have a lot of content dropping on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, detailing my experiences to these events. So make sure to check me out over there, and let's get into this A10 preview. All right, we are joined tonight by two very special guests this time, two of the best follows on A10 Twitter. We once again have my guy, A10 Superfan Burry. He's been on the show already this year. And then we're joined by Loyola Superfan, former student section leader Peter Wallis. So Peter, thanks for coming on the show tonight. How are we doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Glad we were able to make this work. Burry, how we doing tonight? How you feeling? You ready for this tournament? I know you're going to be there all 5 days, I believe, and then I'm going to be joining you here later this week. So are you excited? You ready for it?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. Always a crazy tournament.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All three of us were together for it last year, so it was a lot of fun. So excited to be going again this year. So we'll start here. We're just gonna kind of go round by round. Have you two give your picks. I'll maybe jump in with mine a little bit, but like I said, you two guys are the expert on this one. So first round we got here, both your guys' schools. First, LaSalle and St. Bonaventure in the 12-13 game here on Wednesday, and then the 11-14 game, we got Richmond and Loyola. So, Peter, we'll start with you. Who do you like to win those two matchups?
First one. Sorry, I got St. Bonaventure beating LaSalle. I think LaSalle is very injury ridden right now, and they're not in the right shape.
Gotcha.
And then I got to ride with Loyola round one. They've been playing better of late, and one of their few conference wins was actually against Richmond last weekend. Very good to see. So I got to ride with them.
Fair, fair. How about you? How about you, Burry? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I actually have the exact opposite
Oh no.
of Peter here. So I have LaSalle beating St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure, their head coach Mark Schmidt, either is getting fired or is forced to retire. So that team's all discombobulated. I think there's just so much confusion there that the team folds and LaSalle just rolls them over. And then Richmond, they run that Princeton offense. And I think that's just confusing to deal with. I know Loyola beat them earlier in the season, but I think come tournament time, that's tough to deal with. So yeah, I have Richmond taking that one.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna be a good host here. I'm gonna play to my guests a little bit. I'm gonna go with both your guys, your guys' former schools to get the win. I'm gonna go LaSalle. I'm gonna go Loyola. That way I'm being impartial here. I'm being even to everyone. So we'll go with those two teams to advance on. So then looking here at the next round, we got Fordham and George Washington in the 8-9 game. We have George Mason taking on, like I said, Peter has St. Bonaventure. Ray and I have LaSalle in the 6-11 or 6-12-13 or 5-12-13 game. We got Duquesne and Rhode Island. Duquesne, the home team here in Pittsburgh, taking on a scrappy Rhode Island squad. And then we got Davidson against either Richmond or Loyola, whoever you have. Like I said, you guys both went opposite there. So we'll start with Burry this time. Who are you liking in some of those games there on round two?
Yeah, so I have Fordham beating GW. So GW still ranked like top 100 somehow. I don't know how, but they haven't been playing good basketball lately. And Fordham's been pretty decent this year. They play a nice zone defense. So I actually have them winning that game. George Mason versus LaSalle. Like Peter said, LaSalle's battling injuries. So I think George Mason just plows through them. Um, and then Duquesne, Rhode Island. Rhode Island's probably going to fire Archie Miller. So that's another situation where the team's probably just going to like roll over and give up. So I have Duquesne winning that. Plus, they're the home team. So I think they'll have a pretty big crowd there. Um, and then Davidson, Richmond. I think Davidson wins that one. Just good shooting. They have some good defense. And I think they pull that through.
Gotcha. I like those picks. Peter, what are you thinking?
I agree with all of them except for the first one. I do think that George Washington is very streaky. Like, I don't know, if they play their best, like they were pretty good, but also we've seen how they've been playing. I do think they're going to squeak out of this. I think it's going to be a terrible game to watch, but I do think George Washington's going to win. And then I do think that Mason wins against St. Bonaventure. I don't think that one's going to be particularly interesting either. But then I'll move on. I think Duquesne beats Rhode Island. I think Duquesne plays pretty solid in their home city. I don't know how many fans they'll have there, but we'll see. And then finally, I do have Davidson beating Loyola. Sad to say, but yeah.
Oh
Apparently,
man.
Duquesne sold out their allotment. Like, however many tickets each school gets, like Duquesne
Oh,
sold out for that game apparently.
the hype is
So
real.
yeah, I don't know if the allotment's like 500 tickets or like 1,000 tickets, but yeah, we'll
I guess
see.
we'll find out. You'll have to report about it.
There you
Let me
go. There you
know.
go. We'll have to be, yeah, we'll have to be boots on the ground. I don't know. It might be tough then, we're not gonna be first row in all these student sections like last year, then I guess. If they're already selling out. Yeah, we'll see how that Pittsburgh crowd does. All right. So for my picks, I'm gonna agree with you with Peter in this one. I'm gonna go with GW. I think Rafael Castro is gonna be the best player on the floor in that game. He's a lot of fun to watch. So give me him to carry GW there. And then yeah, I'll probably just agree with you guys then throughout. Go with all the high seeds. Go with Mason, Duquesne, and Davidson to get the wins there. All right, so then that brings us on to the semifinals, or not sorry, quarterfinals, where we have St. Louis against either GW or Fordham. We all have then George Mason, Dayton, VCU, Duquesne, and Davidson, St. Joe. So we'll start with Peter for this round. What are you thinking for those games, Peter?
I think that St. Louis beats George Washington pretty easily. St. Louis is very, very good. They've had a little bit of an issue sometimes, but I think that they will be energized, ready to go after that Mason beating they took the other day. I think St. Louis wins that one. I think Mason beats Dayton. Dayton, I can't pick them to win. They always lose in the first round. So I got to ride with Mason, and I just think they're a better team. Then I got to go with VCU over Duquesne, just because VCU I think is really good as well, and they always play better in tournament setting. And then I got St. Joe's to beat Davidson in the last game, which
Okay,
for some
Ray, what are
reason
you
is on
thinking?
CNBC. But
Yeah, I did see that. I did see some tweets about from St. Joe's fans about what an honor it is to play on CNBC. But yeah, Burry, what are you thinking for that for the next round?
Yeah, so I actually think all of these games are going to be close. I think this is going to be the best day of the tournament, to be honest. So you go from 11:30 a.m. all the way through the night just with good basketball. So St. Louis Fordham, I think St. Louis pulls through, but I think it's again a very close game. They're 3-3 in their last 6 games, so sort of rough patches here. But I think with this week off, basically, I think they'll have enough time to sort of regroup and get the win. George Mason Dayton, again, another crazy game. I think that one will be super low scoring. Like I could see like 62-58 winning that game, but I think Dayton pulls through. Again, they have that double bye, so I think they'll be fully rested when they play Mason. VCU Duquesne, that should be pretty much a sold out crowd, hopefully, in Pittsburgh. But I think VCU is just too physical, and I think they get the job done there. And then Davidson St. Joe's. St. Joe's already won their Super Bowl, beating LaSalle twice. And then they got the double bye, which is like their first double bye in like over 10 years. So they're just already like, hey, this is a great season. And they're like already sending it in. And I think they'll just overlook this game and sort of just falter at the end and probably lose in a close game. But yeah, I have Davidson winning that game actually.
All righty. The reasoning is funny. I like it though. I like it though. I can see it. Yeah, I agree with you. I remember last year when we were there, like there always seems to be a couple upsets on this day. which is why I don't really love my picks here. I think I'm going with the top four teams. I think they're all probably the better teams in their match. But like I said, I think Mason and Dayton will be the best game. But the way that Dayton's playing lately, as opposed to the way George Mason's playing, granted, I guess George Mason did just beat St. Louis, but before then, really hadn't been playing super great. And honestly, like I forget which one you said it, but St. Louis really isn't playing super great as of late either. So I don't know. That win's almost like not as impressive as it would have been, earlier in the season. But yeah, I think I'm going to go St. Louis Dayton. So we get Arch Barron Cup rivalry round 3. And then I think I'm going to go VCU and St. Joe's, mainly just because I want to see the St. Joe's fans there another day. They were fun last year. So hope we get that. So that then gives us, so let's see. Peter's going with St. Louis and George Mason. Ray's going with St. Louis and Dayton. And then Peter's going VCU St. Joe's, Burry's going VCU Davidson. So we got Burry. Who are you going to go with for your semifinal picks?
Yeah, so Arch Barron Cup three-peat here. I think St. Louis gets the job done. I think they sort of realized what they did wrong at Dayton, and I think they correct those issues, and I think they win this game relatively easily, like 12 points maybe. And then in the other semifinal, I think VCU, just the experience, I think they get the job done against Davidson. Davidson's pretty poor at shooting free throws, so I think if it comes down to crunch time, I think VCU is going to be able to sort of squeak this game out, but I think it will be pretty close.
Gotcha. So then, Peter, you have St. Louis, George Mason, and VCU St. Joe's. Who are you going with your picks in those games?
The first one, I have St. Louis beating George Mason. I think the first half is going to be good. St. Louis starts off slow, it seems like every game. I think Mason will have a not very good shooting first half either, so it'll kind of even itself out. But I think St. Louis will pull out in the second half and just win by about 11 or so. And then I think that VCU beats St. Joe's. I think VCU, as Burry said, more physical. I think they're bigger. I think they'll end up winning. It might be under 10. I think it'll be like a 6 or 7 point game, but then I think VCU will win.
Gotcha. All right. So we're both going St. Louis VCU in the title. I would have to agree with you guys. I feel like those have been I haven't watched as much as you guys, but from what I have watched, those have been the best two teams in the A10 all year. So, Peter, who's your pick to win that game?
I have VCU winning. I think they will just come out, play better. They will take advantage of St. Louis's slower starts and end up winning by a pretty close game, I would say.
Gotcha. And then Burry, same thing. Who do you have winning? And also, do you think there's gonna be another boxing match this time? Do you think the fans are gonna start fighting in the stands again, or are we gonna maybe be cordial this time around?
Yeah, for sure. I'm bringing my boxing gloves. I'm gonna fucking be ready to like Floyd Mayweather out here. So yeah, it's gonna be an experience. Honestly, tickets should be like $1,000 to go to that game because I mean,
Definitely.
literally everyone's gonna be fighting in the
I'm
stands, and it's
flying
gonna be
in for
like
that one
everybody.
day.
You have to. But bring your boxing gloves just in case. Um, but yeah, I think that game's gonna be pretty crazy. I think VCU is gonna have the attitude like we need to win this to get in because I think if there's a lot of bid thieves, they're right on the bubble. I think they'll say it's easier just to win this game than to leave it up to the committee. And I think they'll just play their heart out and get this game. But I think it'll be pretty close. But I do have VCU winning that game.
All righty. We talked about this a little bit the first time I had you on, and two, you had a good call there. You said VCU was your kind of dark horse team that you thought could knock off SLU at the time. That was when George Mason was playing really well, so I went with them. But it's obviously clearly not been VCU. But like you guys are saying, the bubble, man. Granted, it sucks. Both these teams should just be in, rather
Yeah.
than a lot of these crappy high
Auburn.
power conference teams. Um, so for that reason, I think even St. Louis isn't going to want to risk it, and I think they're going to play really hard in that game. I think they get the win. So I'm going to go St. Louis instead of VCU, where you guys are going with VCU. So that can now, like I said, we can kind of transition to that a little bit here. I kind of want to get your guys, as mid-major fanatics, your thoughts on the bubble a little bit here. And what exactly, can the A10 do? I guess we talked about this the first time around, but like, what can the A10 do to position themselves better to be getting more of these teams in the field, and kind of surpass some of these crappy, like I said, mid or power conference teams? We'll start with Peter this time, like I said, because I haven't heard your thoughts on this. So Peter, what are your thoughts on how the A10 could potentially get some more bids?
I have two big things. The first one, actually, both depend on how competent the next commissioner is. The first one would be trying to get like a scheduling agreement with the new Pac-12. Just because they have Gonzaga, they have San Diego State, they have Boise State, like they have great basketball programs, and that would be a great way of positioning yourself in the non-conference without having to play SEC or ACC, because they dodge the A10 all the time. But then the second one would be dynamic scheduling in the conference. I think you got to have the best teams play the best, just to stack those quad 2 games, quad 1 maybe even, just to give everyone better metrics going into the conference tournament play.
Gotcha. I like those ideas. Burry, you have anything to add on that, or even if you want to campaign a little bit for why should VCU be in the title if say they are or in the NCAA tournament, even if they lose in the title game to St. Louis.
Yeah, so first thing, I don't know if we want more bids. I think we want more bids in the NIT and the Crown tournament. Because honestly, those are now the premier tournaments all around. Because we all know that March Madness, like the official bracket, is just totally a hoax. Like the committee puts in the big five teams and do whatever, but the NIT is pure. Loyola made that nice run last year.
Exactly.
That's college basketball right there.
Mm-hmm.
Hinkle Fieldhouse, the whole deal. So I think maybe we just want to keep our conference to one or two bids, let them get eliminated in the round of 64 or 32, and then just go and win the NIT. We had a big drought in the NIT, but I think we could actually win it this year, depending who gets in it. But yeah, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I think VCU does have a fair shot at making March Madness. I think they're technically in right now because like Auburn lost, Indiana lost, like pretty much all the other bubble teams lost. But a lot could change in a week, but we'll see. But yeah, honestly, I don't know if you change anything because this is the zero bid league. We don't even want one bid, but we kind of have to. So
Yeah, so
but
maybe
yeah,
you should petition, if anything, to remove your automatic qualifier bid, and yeah, then you can actually have zero teams. Just have St. Louis go run the NIT this year.
not a bad idea.
Had Dayton
Let's
written
go.
all over it.
Yeah. That I'll be honest, just that right there is why I love A10 Twitter, because you guys come up with some of that is one of the takes of all time. I did not expect that to be the answer I got when I asked that question. But I like it. I like Peter's scheduling agreement ideas. I know we talked about that very little bit the first time you were on as well. So yeah, I think that's probably what it would be. And yeah, like you guys are saying, a lot of these teams are kind of VCU's helping themselves out because a lot of these teams are just like losing and they almost like don't seem to want to be in. Maybe they want to be in the NIT and the Crown, so they just keep losing on the bubble there. But let's get to that. Let's get to you guys' schools a little bit here. As you can see, you guys are both playing the first day. So I want to get your guys' opinion on kind of program outlook here going forward. We'll start with you, Peter, especially because Loyola. I feel like Loyola was a team that before the season I thought maybe they could kind of be a dark horse here in the A10, and then you see they come in last. So kind of just what went wrong this year and what needs to improve next year?
A lot went wrong. I'll just say that first. I'm not going to blame one thing, obviously, just because of like injuries. There's a lot of injuries. That's not why they're last. I think their offense has struggled a lot. They lost their leading assistant coach to the Phoenix Suns in the offseason, which he was like their offensive guy, to an offense that wasn't even that great to begin with. But I think Coach Valentine struggled to find an assistant who could fill in that role, which led to them we all saw it. Their offense just was NBA style, just throw up a bunch of threes, and none of them went in, obviously. But yeah, I think it was just the lack of offense and real leadership on the team.
Gotcha. Well, Burry, do you have anything to add to that, and then too, what are kind of your thoughts on LaSalle here going forward?
Yeah, does Miles Rubin have any eligibility left, or
He does, yeah. He's a junior.
do you think he'll stay, or do you think he'll portal?
I could see both ways. Just like he was like their main guy. He was supposed to be like him, and he's obviously struggled with which I think not really all of his fault. I think they just should have given him the ball every single possession, but they didn't. But I think he might stay just because why not? They'll give him some money. They got money to give.
All the Raising Canes in town are gonna be pretty upset if he leaves. That's a lot of posters they're gonna have to take out and have someone else remake. Maybe that went to his head too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of LaSalle, we had like 7 season-ending injuries on the team. We're like one of the
Crazy.
most injured teams like in college basketball. It's pretty wild. Some people blame it on recruiting like injury-prone players. Like a lot of the players in their past had like knee injuries and stuff. So that's one take. Another thing is like, is the coach running them too hard in practice, or is it just bad luck? I don't really know. But hopefully next year we don't have as many injuries and then we could really see because LaSalle just got a new coach this year, Jarris Nichols. So next year is the year we'll like finally see sort of how good his recruiting is, how good his eye for talent is, and how good his actual coaching is. So we'll see. Next year is really the make or break year. Hopefully the goal is like 500 or better. Is pretty good for LaSalle. So that's sort of the target that we're shooting for.
Gotcha. And then I forgot to ask this when we finished our brackets. I might squish this around editing wise. So we all went with the top 2 seeds to make the final there. If there was a dark horse team that you could think that would go on a run to, make at least the final or even win the whole thing, we'll say not one of the top 3 or 4 seeds. Who would your pick be? We'll start with you, Burry.
Yeah, so actually my 2 scenarios for the tournament are either St. Louis VCU or just a totally wild tournament where it goes like George Mason Duquesne, which would be like a 5 and an 8 seed. So I think the two best shots are really Duquesne or George Mason, like I said, Duquesne because they have the home crowd and they play a good style of basketball. They came back from like down 30 against Richmond in their last game, so they have the offensive firepower to like really stay in games that they really had to. And then George Mason, coached by Tony Skinn, is always pretty good defensively, and they beat a lot of like these other teams before, like Dayton and St. Louis. So they could definitely make a run too. But if I had to pick one, I would probably say George Mason, just because of that performance against St. Louis for the final game of the season.
Gotcha. Peter, who would you go with?
I really like that Georgia Mason pick, but I will switch it up just for the for this. I will, and correct me. This is gonna be a huge wild card. I think it's George Washington. I think they've obviously vastly underperformed this year. I think it's Caputo's fault. They have the good players. I just think coaching is lacking. But I think they can beat Fordham. And then we saw they've played I think they were winning at halftime at St. Louis this year earlier. I think if they could catch St. Louis on a bad shooting day and they could play their best, they could beat St. Louis and then anything is up from there.
Gotcha. How realistic of a chance does Dayton have here to win the championship? I feel like, maybe that's just their fan base on Twitter. I feel like that's been something though that a lot of Dayton fans are being like, "Oh, we're gonna win, and we're gonna get a 3-bid A10." So, Peter, what do you think on that? If you had to put a number 1 to 10, Dayton's chance to win the A10 tournament.
I would probably say a 4. Like I think they can. Like I think their team's good enough and they're built good enough. I think coaching might hold them back a little bit. I'm not high on Anthony Grant, but also like Dayton, I feel like since Loyola joined the A10, they've maybe won one conference tournament game. Like Loyola probably has the same amount as them, and that's saying a lot. I just think that they definitely can, especially they've beaten George Mason, they've beaten St. Louis, like they can beat those teams. I think they're bound to lose one of those.
Gotcha. Burry, what would you give it?
Yeah, I think it's been 20 years since they've won it. I'm pretty sure, like
Wow.
actually 20 years. But I would say probably a 2 out of 10. They probably have like a 20% chance, I think. If they could skate past like George Mason in that first game, I think that helps a lot because they could beat St. Louis. They did it pretty recently. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they have the firepower to get it done, but we'll see.
Gotcha. I guess that would have been cheating a little bit. That would have potentially been my pick. I like the GW pick, especially just the way St. Louis has been playing lately, where maybe they don't come ready. Or then probably was going to think George Mason or Dayton. So there we go. I like those takes from you guys. But I think that's going to wrap it up. Unless you guys have any more final thoughts on either the A10 tournament here, or just the conference as a whole.
Yeah, what do you guys think about the Adrian Wojnarowski and like Coach Schmidt deal? Like it was a big thing on Twitter like the past 2 days where it's like they
Mhm.
forced out a legend and people are picking sides, whether it's Woj or the coach.
Well,
What
I
do you
didn't I
guys?
didn't know about this. I'll let Peter start then. What are your thoughts?
I did see that. I saw. I feel bad for Coach Schmidt. I do think his time was like kind of running to an end. I don't think he was able to adjust to the portal that much. but I think he was done dirty. And I wish St. Bonaventure luck finding someone who will be able to coach as well as Schmidt. Just, I don't think a lot of people realize how bad of a situation that program is in. From people I've talked to, they don't have that many financial resources in the program. I don't know about NIL, but just program wise, like they just don't have the resources to compete all the time. So Coach Schmidt was really helping boost that program. So I'm interested to see how that goes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like it's always weird here when these schools make like the dismissal or firing of the coach like very public and like very drawn out. And I feel like that just really hurts your ability to get a top guy or get your top guy, whoever you're thinking.
And
it's like, why would I want to go there and deal with that?
And I don't know if you saw what John Rothstein said, where he tweeted that they plan on paying their coach significantly less than Schmidt. I did see that. Why would you ever say that?
That's a crazy thing to just outright admit.
Like, how much are you really saving by doing this? Like by paying the players?
Yeah, I don't know, this whole NIL world, man. It's crazy, and yeah, I guess that's kind of what we're coming here to. Well,
hopefully the next coach likes getting paid less.
Burry, you got any other topics? You're hot on the beat here.
Yeah, last thing I want to talk about is if Dayton actually wins the tournament, will they get put into the first four? Because it's literally a home game, like because the first four is at Dayton. Or would they get an actual seed? If they win the
tournament, they get the auto bid. They won't have to because it's only it's like the four lowest, unless Dayton would somehow be a 16 seed, which I don't think they'd be that low.
Give them the 16
because it's the like 11 seed games is just those are the last four at-large teams in the field. So yeah, so Dayton, like I said, to make the tournament is going to have to win the A10 tournament. And then because they're in auto bid, they won't play in Dayton. But that would be crazy. I remember there was the one time they did play there against like Boise State, and they ended up kind of getting a friendly whistle like late that won them the game. I want to say that was back in like 2014 or something.
So VCU would play there then, presumably, if the bubble doesn't really
potentially yes. Yeah, it's looking like if VCU gets in as an at-large, that's probably where they'd be.
Okay, that's it. Do you think the Dayton like home crowd would root for VCU or whoever they're playing against?
No.
I would say probably not rooting for VCU. Like I said, I don't know how. I guess being in Dayton,
I've actually seen that discourse online already. The Dayton fans were like, "No."
But the conference gets money if the A10 keeps like winning games.
Hey, so that's why they have 13,000 fans a game. They got money.
Yeah, true. I think
attendance champions right there.
I was gonna say I think Dayton. If any school's good on the money in the A10, it's definitely Dayton. So you're saying here they're in your camp of they'd rather be in the Crown or the NIT. They just want the
free vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to Vegas, gamble a bit.
I don't know because that one's like weird too, where it's like a certain amount of like Big East, a certain amount of Big 10, and like Big 12 teams have to be in. I think they're shortening that field to only 8 teams this year too.
Must be a big money maker then.
Yeah, that and Players Era, man. Oh, they're definitely killing it out there in Vegas. But all righty, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much to you guys both for coming on. Make sure to follow them at A10 Superfan on Twitter, at Peter Wallis. Like I said, two of the best follows here on Twitter, especially for A10 basketball. So thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks for
having us.
No problem. So once again, thank you so much to both Burry and Peter for coming on. Like I said, two really great follows there on Twitter, especially if you're into A10 basketball or you don't get to watch a whole bunch of it. They're guys that do, so definitely make sure to check them out. So just going through here, first we'll just kind of start on Wednesday. The biggest games, first at 5 Eastern time on ESPN2, we have the Southland final with McNeese taking on Stephen F. Austin. McNeese won a thrilling 3-overtime game last night. They're now taking on the 1 seed Stephen F. Austin in the championship game here. Those are the top 2 teams in the Southland. This is what I picked coming into it. I think most people probably picked this. I'm going to go with McNeese. I picked them in my bracket, so give me the Cowboys to get the auto bid there once again for a 3rd straight year in the Southland. Another final that we have here, the Patriot League at 7 Eastern time on CBS Sports Network. You have Boston University and Lehigh, 2 teams that have gone on some runs here in the Patriot League. Boston had that big upset over Navy during the week, and then Lehigh is one of the lower seeds as well. It's been on a bit of a run. So looking at the projection, has Lehigh winning there by 2. They are the higher seed in this tournament. If it was, they're playing back-to-back days, I would probably be going with Boston, just, coming off that high of knocking off Navy, but there's now been a couple days in between here, so, maybe that momentum's kind of died down a little bit. These teams have had an opportunity to scout each other, so I'm going to go with Lehigh to get the win there in the Patriot. And then late night, 11:30 Eastern Time on ESPN2, we have the Big Sky Final. Like I said, I was up late watching some of these games yesterday, but Idaho, they're the 7 seed. They're on a bit of a run here, as well as Montana, the 4 seed, took down number 1 seed Portland State yesterday. So the 7 versus the 4 in the final, not a super common matchup there. Idaho's actually projected to win this one by 3, but I don't know. The Montana schools seem to run the Big Sky lately. We'll see how much longer, they're in there because of football reasons, see if maybe they try to jump ship to a different league. So for the time being, though, I am going to go with Montana. The projection here does have Idaho winning, but I like Montana to get the win there. And then just kind of looking around here, we got the A10 starting today. Like I said, that's why, just did the big preview with them. We got some SWAC games. We got second round of all the Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, and then we got the SEC and Big East starting today. So let's get into some of those tournaments. First, we'll start here in the Big Ten with my picks. So went 1 for 2 yesterday, was very wrong on Oregon, but Northwestern ends up getting the win. So today, I like Iowa, Washington, Indiana, and Minnesota all win their advance. Looking at the next round, I went Iowa over Ohio State. I think, Iowa's maybe a little bit more desperate at this point than Ohio State, but I could see that one very much going either way. Bruce Thornton and Bennett Sturt's 2 really fun guys to watch. And then I went chalk the rest of the way, Wisconsin, Purdue, and UCLA all getting the win there. I know Carter was big on Indiana in our Big Ten preview, but I'm just not seeing with them the way they're playing lately. In the quarters, I have a couple upsets. I got, Michigan and Illinois advancing no problem, but then I'm going to go Purdue, and I do have Michigan State. I think UCLA is going to give them a game, though. I think Purdue, we kind of see it every year. We're in the Big Ten tournament. One team, especially teams that haven't been playing great, kind of go on a run, get right here in the Big Ten tournament. For me this year, I think that's going to be Purdue. I mean, we saw it last year with Michigan. And then I have Michigan and Purdue in the final. I think Purdue knocks off Michigan State. I know on Carter's show I went with Michigan State, but after, looking at some projections and stuff like that again, I'm going to go with Purdue, but then I do think Michigan is still just the best team. Here in the Big Ten, I think they get the win over Purdue. Then on to the ACC. Not a great day for me picks-wise there. We had 2 upsets yesterday with Wake Forest and Pitt taking down Va-Tech and Stanford, effectively ending those 2 team seasons. Va-Tech and Stanford were bubble teams, but SMU got big games from Boopy Miller and Jerron Pierre advanced there. Today, I'm going with all the high seeds. That probably, once again, is not going to happen, but NC State, especially now against Pitt, I like them to get the win there. Louisville, I have winning over SMU, but I don't know, SMU, I could see them winning that game as well. Like I said, it's going to be a fun guard battle there between, Michael Brown, Isaac McNeely, and some of those Louisville guys against Boopy Miller and Jerron Pierre. Clemson, I had them taking down Va-Tech. Now it's going to be Wake Forest with, I don't know, Clemson's another team that's been kind of shaky as of late, so I very much could see like Wake Forest once again pulling the upset. And then Florida State and Cal. It's going to be a really fun one. 2 teams that are playing really good basketball right now. I went with Florida State. They're a team that probably has a little bit of work to do to get themselves the NCAA tournament, but if they win today and then they play a undermanned Duke team tomorrow, that's where things can get interesting. And then after that, like I said, Miami's a team that I could see going on a run the ACC tournament here, but also just looking at projections and stuff like that, Louisville just beat them. I did end up going with Louisville, but then on that, went chalk, went Virginia. I think North Carolina is better than Clemson, or like I said, if it's Wake Forest. And then Duke, like I said, they are undermanned. So that Florida State game does scare me a little bit. Like if Florida State was playing, Miami, who they've already beat this year, or Virginia, I'd probably pick Florida State. But just with it being Duke, I still just have a hard time picking against Duke. So for that reason, I'm going Virginia, Louisville, and then Duke, Carolina here in the final. And then I'm going Virginia, Duke. They've been the top 2 teams in the league all year. And then Duke to get the win. Grant, like I said, Duke is probably the square pick. There's probably no value in that, just like I said, with how much they're favored by and just the injuries they have. So I'd maybe, if you're a betting man or woman, I would probably stay away from betting Duke, but I'm not. I'm just trying to pick my winners here in advance, on these leaderboards here on Heston Hoops. I'm currently in second, so kind of stoked about that. So for that reason, I went with Duke. In the Big 12, like I said, was 2 for 2 yesterday. Oklahoma State and Arizona State got the wins, but then was right on BYU and Cincinnati. Those two teams, pretty need some wins here. I think there are going to be some fun ones today here, like UCF and Cincinnati. UCF's a team that should be in. Cincinnati, they've got some work to do, so just because of that reason, I think they'll be a little bit more desperate, and I went with Cincinnati to get the win there. BYU, I know they just lost to West Virginia, but I almost feel like they kind of want to prove a little bit here that they're better than how they've been playing lately. So I went with them, to get revenge over West Virginia. Plus, with this being a neutral site game rather than having to go out east, I think that favors BYU a little bit. Then I went with TCU now over Oklahoma State and Iowa State over Arizona State. I think those two teams, their tournament caliber teams are just a better team. Went with them for that reason. Then moving on to the quarters, I went with Iowa State. Like I said, Kansas City is kind of a home game for Iowa State at the Big 12 tournament there, plus Texas Tech. A little bit banged up. They really don't have much to gain from playing deep into this Big 12 tournament. So Iowa State definitely more desperate team there. Arizona, they're just the better team. That's why I went with them over Cincinnati. Same thing with, Houston. And then Kansas TCU, I think, should be a fun one. I don't know how much, a guy like Darren Peterson or a team like Kansas, in all reality, is going to care about this tournament. That's why, I was a little bit hesitant to pick Kansas to go deep despite it being in Kansas City. I do think they win in the quarters, but I have Houston knocking them off, and then I have Arizona over Iowa State. We just saw, Arizona's already beat Iowa State this year pretty handily a couple weeks ago. Granted, that one was in Tucson. Is now, it'll be kind of a pseudo home game for Iowa State, but I do just think Arizona's a better team. And then once again, price square, but I went with Arizona over Houston in the final. In the Big East, this one's starting today. First round, I went with Marquette, Georgetown, and Providence. I would love to see DePaul win this game. I just think Georgetown is maybe a little bit the more desperate team. They historically have fared better in the Big East tournament. Got on a run and are playing, not good, but decent ball as of late. That's really Marquette. Marquette's hot. They're fresh off their win against UConn. And then Providence, like I said, just I really haven't been super impressed with Butler this year, so went with Providence. Then went square in the quarters here, having the top 4 seeds, but I could very easily see Creighton taking down Seton Hall. Seton Hall is a weird team, and Carter talks about a lot on his preview. Seton Hall is a team that I could see winning the Big East tournament, going on a run here, 3 games in 3 days. They're also a team that I could see losing to Creighton. So for that reason, I went with them to win, but have them losing to St. John's in the next round. Same thing, UConn, Villanova. Villanova's a better team than Georgetown. Maybe Georgetown could pull off an upset there, but I doubt it. And same thing with Marquette. Like I said, they did just beat UConn, but I think UConn gets right here 2 days later. They're a team that gets up for the Big East tournament. So I'm going with UConn and St. John's, round 3 here in the final. I know St. John's won the first meeting at the Garden, but after just how badly UConn beat them last time around, I have a hard time not picking UConn. Especially UConn, I think, is going to be hungry after not winning the Big East. Like I said, I think they've been the best team in the Big East all year, and to not win that tournament, I think they get their revenge here. I think they take down St. John's in the final. And then the SEC also opens up today again, one that I previewed with Carter, so I'm just kind of go through it pretty quickly. I like Auburn, Kentucky, Texas, and Oklahoma, all the top seeds here today. The only one, this is more of just like a rooting interest. I hope Mississippi State takes down Auburn. Josh Hubbard, Mississippi State's one of my favorite players to watch, can just get hot, take over a game in a second, and I'm kind of tired of all the Auburn discourse, so would love for them to just get knocked out. I did go with Kentucky over Missouri tomorrow, but I think that's going to be a really fun game. Those are 2 teams. Missouri's already beat Kentucky this year at Rupp Arena as well, but I'm just going to go with the Wildcats here. I think, they're in the tournament, but a team that it's kind of similar to a BYU. They want to get right here, play some good ball before. So I went with Kentucky, and then same thing, just went all the high seeds, Tennessee, Georgia, and A&M. I think they're the better teams in their matchups. In the quarters, once again, went chalk, but if I was going to pick one, like I said this on Carter's show, if I was going to pick a team that I think can go on a run, get an upset here, I'm going to go with Georgia. I went back and forth between Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Those 2 teams have played some really good matchups this year, but I do just kind of think Vanderbilt, is the better team. Maybe has a little bit more here to play for as well. They don't have that same prestige and notoriety that they've won, a bunch of SEC tournament games and stuff like that. So I think they're a team that I could see them really caring about this tournament. But then they run into the buzzsaw that is Florida. And then, like I said, I went Arkansas over Alabama. Like I said, could easily see it being Georgia. I think Florida and Arkansas are just 2 best teams in this league. And then I ended up going with Florida to get the win there. So going here quickly, I'll just kind of jump through some other conferences that I have not yet previewed on the show, but they're getting started here. In the Big West, I went with UC Irvine to get the win there. They're the ones who've been the best team in that league. I have UC Santa Barbara going on a run to face them in the finals. Then moving on to the CUSA that got started yesterday. Got the 2 quarterfinal games wrong, or first round games wrong. But then in the final there, I like Liberty and Sam Houston. I think those have been the two best teams in the league. Some of the projections here really even have Sam Houston winning that game, but Liberty's been the best team in the league. I think they're a team that can win a game come March, so I didn't want to pick against them. So for that reason, I went with Liberty to win the CUSA. Looking here at some other tournaments, the MEAC gets started today as well. For that one, I went with Howard. I'm getting the win. I have Maryland Eastern Shore going on a bit of a run there as the 6th seed, but Howard's been the best team. I think they win that league pretty easily. The Mountain West, I think, is going to be a fun one. Went with all the high seeds starting today. Same thing tomorrow. Went with teams, 1 through 4. But then that's where I had the upsets. I like Grand Canyon to take down Utah State. They've already beaten Utah State this year. And then they honestly should have swept them and played them close. I like New Mexico, actually, to pull off the win against San Diego State. And then I'm going New Mexico over Grand Canyon. So I think we get a bid stealer out of the Mountain West. This tournament's been kind of chaotic the last couple of years, so that's another reason, too, why I didn't want to go with Utah State. Plus, I think, like I said, the league benefits a lot more. Like, if Utah State wins, the Mountain West honestly might be a one-bid league this year. And it seems to be a tournament that's always had some chaos the past couple of years. So I went with New Mexico to knock off Grand Canyon. But honestly, I could see any of those teams, 1 through 4, winning that league. Trying to think here. I think most of these other ones I have gone through, given my picks. In the SWAC, not a great start here for me. I have Bethune-Cookman over Southern in the final. I think those are the two best teams in that league. I was kind of hesitant with Florida A&M. I kind of almost saw Grambling beating them. Grambling lost yesterday. But yeah, I'm going to go Bethune-Cookman over Southern in the SWAC. Shout out my guy Sports Drop Report on TikTok. He's been at that league live covering it. So shout out to him. He's been doing a great job. I liked his content there. Other leagues here then, the WAC is one of the other ones that gets started today. It's been a whole fiasco of can Utah Valley play or not. Now they're allowed to play, and I think if they're in, I'm going with them to win this tournament. I think they're the best team in that league. I think that final between them and Cal Baptist should be a lot of fun. I want to say I've touched on all of the other ones. I think that was pretty much it. It was the big ones. Conferences starting today, and then those are most of the other ones. But like I said, if you are missing out on any of my picks, I've put a lot of them out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, stuff like that. So make sure to check them out there. But that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys once again so much for watching. Once again, like I said, my apologies for no video yesterday. It's been kind of chaotic. I've been trying to move out of my apartment as well as then, going to all these games. I'm going to 6 straight days of conference tournament play, so recording this here quickly before going to the Big Ten here on Wednesday morning. And like I said, I have a long drive to Cleveland after those games ahead of me today, but I'm excited. Going to do some recording when I get in there tonight. Kind of talk about, maybe some more of the bubble stuff since I've just been doing more conference tournament previews. But like I said, make sure to follow all my socials. Been doing a lot of content on there just because, I can get it out quicker there. Make sure to subscribe to the channel here. Like the video. Comment your picks for these conference tournaments. I want to know what you guys are thinking. If you guys are riding with me. If you guys are liking, other teams. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow the show. Rate 5 stars. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.